This is Nagasaki, and just around that hill right there is the hypocenter of the atomic bomb in August of 1945. A lot of people probably don't realize that Nagasaki is this, not just the hypocenter of that atomic bombing, but of globalism to Japan. This was for centuries the center of globalism landing in Japan. This water right in front of you. I mean, everybody was here. Who's who in the zoo? Like, for instance, in 1864, what was it, Masako, 200 and some odd ships came through here from the United States, and that was during the peak of our Civil War, by the way. I think it was 24 U.S. ships. 200 and how many ships?
226.
226 ships from like Netherlands, Prussia, Spain, all over the place. They came here just in that one year of 1864. So this was, it takes a little study. Masako and I have been studying hard this whole week, we've been to, I think, 6 museums now, and the only 3 old bookstores remaining. All the rest are, we spent like 2 days in those bookstores, of those 3 bookstores, but all the rest are now not brick and mortar, they're online stores. But this is it. This is where globalism came to Japan in the 1500s, and the Catholics landed here, the Portuguese, Francis Xavier, however you always pronounce that name. Everybody pronounces it differently, of course. And what's interesting too is that this is where Christians they came in here, and of course the Christians, there's the 26 Martyrs monument around here somewhere. We're in a giant graveyard, by the way. And and they always play out to be the victims, but in reality they were doing a lot of victimizing here. But that's another story for another time. It's very, very interesting. And what's more interesting is this was the center for Christianity in Japan, and still is, and Christians nuked it. So this was the center of Christianity in Japan. The largest church in all of East Asia was founded here, they started working on it in 1914, the year the Panama Canal opened. So the biggest church in East Asia was started right here, around here somewhere. And then when the atomic bomb landed, it landed only, I think, 400 or so meters away, or it didn't land, but it was a airburst, but it detonated only, I think, you could look it up, about 400 meters away from that church, which was quite interesting. So Christians came here, did all kinds of things. It wasn't all pleasant, like the Portuguese were kidnapping Japanese off the slaves in India and Brazil and that sort of thing. And finally, of course, the Japanese, they did fight back because they didn't want that sort of globalism. And but then the Christians, of course, make themselves out to be the martyrs, and it's the same old story, professional victims, right? And so, but at the end of the day, finally, Commodore Perry came in 1853, not to here to start with, but he came up closer to Tokyo. And end of the day, in 1854, the United States opened up Japan. Commodore Matthew Perry, I've got his first reports to Congress. They're fascinating. They're worth reading if you ever have like a couple of weeks, because they're big and they're worth it. And opened up Japan, and then from there it just got more intense. Finally, Japan had to join the club of globalists, or they would be subsumed and devoured, because the United States, of course, we started the idea of War Plan Orange probably in the late 1890s. That's kind of mysterious and murky when it really started. I've read 1906, but anyway, War Plan Orange was the plan by the United States to defeat Japan. And so what you saw in World War I, Japan was an ally of the British. They were on basically our side. And then after World War I, Japan didn't get a seat at the table. And Japan's like, why not? And they're like, because you're Japanese. Straight up. It was that clear, right? And so the Japanese are like, what are you talking about? And because they fought as well as anybody. And anyway, then we get into World War II. The Japanese wanted to join our side. They were very clear about it, very clear. And then, of course, we had Pearl Harbor, which the United States makes out as a surprise attack. But it was actually headline news in the Honolulu Advertiser the weekend before, which was big news in the following month or two, when the president was saying, hey, we had a surprise attack at Pearl Harbor. But then people are like, no, wait a minute, 2,400 Americans just died, and it was not a surprise attack. In fact, it was on the headlines of the Honolulu Advertiser, and not just that, but many other newspapers. I found it like 10 years ago. You can look it up on maybe newspapers.com or someplace. You can find, about 10 years ago when I published that, or more than that, maybe 10 or 12, people were saying, oh, that's a Photoshop, you Photoshop that newspaper. Check before you talk. We knew the attack was coming on Pearl Harbor. We 100% knew, and in fact, we 100% caused it to happen, just like the Israelis did on October 7th, or with the Liberty, right? It's an old game that we do, and we needed casus belli. Americans weren't going to get riled up for Roosevelt to come and make money in China by saying, hey, I need to make more money. They would get riled up, though, if you get the Japs to attack someplace. Americans thought that they might attack at Panama Canal, so we had huge defenses there. They ended up attacking in Pearl Harbor, but again, it was headline news in the newspapers, not just the Honolulu Advertiser, but others. And then the attack happened, and we played like, oh, where did that come from? Yeah, we let them do it. That's why we dropped our defenses, intentionally let them kill 2,400 Americans. Look at some of the photography, perfect photography at the time. I think I'll put one on Substack maybe later tonight, one of the old photos. Perfect photos, just like the Trump ear flag behind him thing and all that stuff. This is a one big stage, Ghost in the Machine. But this is it, Nagasaki. There's a stealth, which looked like a stealth ship on the other side of the water over there, parked. And by the way, between us and that stealth ship is the Glover museum is over there. Over here. It's in this area. And that Glover was a Scottish man who came over in, what year did he come over, Masako?
15,
No, not the 15s.
Oh,
it was in the 1859. He came over 5 years after Commodore Perry opened it up. So at that point, so some people call him an Englishman because, remember, Scotland had lost its sovereignty due to their excursion down in the Darien Gap when they tried to make a path between the seas. In 1707, Scotland was, let's say, conjoined with England, and eventually it became Great Britain. And eventually they began calling it Great Britain. But in any case, that's when Scotland joined, was 1707, because they went bankrupt in their globalist attempt in Panama. I'm not saying anything's wrong with globalism, by the way. I want to make that very clear, because globalism is just the way things are going to go, period. Whether you like it or not, that's the way it's going to go. What we don't like is the globalism where it involves mass genocide, involves turning boys into girls, and includes invading our countries. Japan was afraid that the things that would happen, that ended up happening, would happen, and they did. Remember, they let Christians come here, and then Christians sponsored a rebellion, which the Dutch actually helped arm the Japanese to kill the Portuguese. Anyway, it's an interesting story itself. But so, the Christians came here to Nagasaki and made a big Christian community, and then ended up, you let Masako explain that at a different time. We're going to meet with a professor actually for dinner again tonight. We had last night dinner with him as well, but it's fascinating what happened. But anyway, Christians came here, great, and then Christians nuked the town where the Christians were, and the bomb landed very close to the biggest cathedral in East Asia. You can't make up this stuff. This is like out of a movie, like the stuff that's going on now, like all the Epstein and other crazy stuff. The crazy stuff we're seeing today, there is zero new about it. Now, when it comes to the Thai conflict right now with Cambodia, it has nothing to do with that temple, nothing to do with that 1907 map, other than that's a nice distraction for people. It has to do with routes and resources. That's why they were in Nagasaki, routes and resources. This is a perfect place, it still is, for trade in Asia and around the world. And it was. And this was one of the centers of trade in the world. That's why the Scottish man who came here, Glover, his home was right over there. He changed Japan. He started a brewery, which Masako and I were curious about that because we know alcohol is one of the chief weapons of subjugation. Actually, could be coincidence. Could be. I have no idea. And but he did a lot of things that were, I think, good for Japan. But at the end of the day, it was just part of the globalism, right? And so that's what's going on. But when you look at Thailand right now, and you look at this conflict, you see the people that are concentrated on the temple. Those, don't even pay attention to them. the ones who are counting tanks and F-16s that Thailand has, Thailand has a very strong military. I've been out with them a lot. I've been to EOD training with them a couple times. That Al Johnson used to run their EOD training once a year with hundreds of people from around the world would come. They would come from Israel, United States, Navy, Air Force, Army, Marines, Indians, like, I don't know, a couple dozen countries, right? Malaysia, Indonesia. He wouldn't let Chinese come. But Al Johnson used to teach the Thai police and the Thai, Al Johnson, JBS, who publishes on my Twitter under JBS. He's the only person that has authorization to publish on my Twitter. He has the Historical Detective Agency. You might want to look at it on Substack. And so Al and I, we've been all over these places, Japan and Malaysia and Indonesia and Thailand and so many other places, looking at these issues, Panama. And Masako has too. Masako in the last 4 years has been to 30 countries looking at this. This cannot be understood by sitting still. You have to go out and look. You have to physically go places. Tonight we're going to be at another information event. We're going to be with this professor, and we're taking him to a Chinese information war event at the Atomic Bomb Museum. And they had one 2 nights ago. Actually, it's called Border Zero. And how do you say it in Japanese, Masako?
Kokyo Zero.
Kokyo Zero. So they kept saying Kokyo Zero to everybody. You know, they would like, hello would be Kokyo Zero, and goodbye was Kokyo Zero, and thank you was Kokyo Zero, and you're welcome was Kokyo Zero. It's like Heil Hitler, right? So the Chinese are running this thing. Now keep in mind, I have no idea how many museums on this. I've been all across China and all across the world going to museums looking at Chinese and other information war. So when I come into one of these things, and Masako and I, we've been to 6 museums this week. So when I go into these things, I can read the sign very quickly. I can see Chinese influence, for instance, like in this one, in the museum here in Nagasaki at the Atomic Bomb Museum, it's all about peace. Now, peace is code for surrender in the way that they're using it. But if you go to the museum in Nanjing, China, which I've done, huge museum, it's all about aggression from Japan to China and creating hatred towards Japan. That's what, if you go to museums across China, they're creating hatred against Japan. That's what they do there. But here, the museums that are clearly either operated by or heavily influenced by China are all about peace. Peace, peace means surrender, surrender, surrender in the context that you see it. It's fascinating. If any serious historians want to go out with this, we can take them, but you got to be dead serious, not vacation, not tourism and that sort of thing. We've taken, I don't know, maybe 60 people, 70 people into the Darien Gap and through the Panama Canal and many, many places. The only places I refused to take people was combat and the wars, and that was it because it was so crazy dangerous. And that was where everybody thought it was like a vacation. I was like, you're going to get shot in the face. But out here, I'll take you, and we can go to museums and that sort of thing, but you have to be a very serious either information warrior or writer or historian, that sort of thing, because this is not elementary schooling that you would be getting. It's PhD level, and it starts at PhD level. It's not going to start at a beginner level.